All right, let's do a quick quantum security checkup. The goal here is to help you pinpoint your organization's exact risk from, well, the coming quantum threat. We're going to walk through a step-by-step diagnosis, so let's get started.
Okay, so let's start with this question. I know it sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? But this is the central question that every organization really needs to be asking itself. And the scary part? The threat isn't some far-off future problem. For some, the damage is actually being done right now. You might be asking, how is that even possible? Well, that brings us to a really crucial concept.
It's called the Store Now, Decrypt Later attack, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Imagine adversaries, a lot of them state-sponsored, just vacuuming up huge amounts of our encrypted data. Right now, today. They can't read any of it yet, but they are making a bet. They're betting that in, say, 10 or 20 years, they'll have a quantum computer that's powerful enough to just crack all of it wide open. So you see the problem? If your data needs to stay secret for that long, you don't have a future problem. You have a problem today.
And that's why we can't put this off. It all boils down to one thing: the confidentiality shelf life of your information. Just ask yourself, will the secrets that we're encrypting today still be valuable, still be sensitive in 2 decades? If the answer is yes, then guess what? You are already in the quantum danger zone.
So, okay, how do you figure out where you stand? What's your specific level of urgency? Well, we can actually do that by finding what we call your PQC persona. That's post-quantum cryptography persona. It's basically a way to categorize yourself. It'll tell you if you're someone who needs to act like now, or if you've got a bit more breathing room.
At the highest level, it's pretty straightforward. You're either an urgent adopter, meaning you're handling the kind of stuff that's a perfect target for those store now, decrypt later attacks we just talked about, or you're a regular adopter, where maybe your assets don't have that long-term sensitivity. So let's figure out which one you are. I've got a couple of key questions that'll help. First question, and it's all about your data. Think about what you handle day to day. Is it sensitive personal information or organizational data that absolutely has to stay secret for more than, say, 10 or 20 years? We're talking about things like state secrets, valuable intellectual property, or sensitive health records. The kind of info that, if it got leaked in 2045, would still be a total disaster.
If you found yourself nodding along and saying yes to that, well, you fit right into one of those key urgent adopter personas. You're a handler of sensitive data. And for you, yeah, the clock is definitely already ticking. Okay, let's switch gears a bit from data to systems and infrastructure. Second question, do you produce systems that are critical for society or things that just have a really long lifespan, over a decade? I'm talking about things like payment terminals, satellites in orbit, cars on the road, systems that we build and deploy today, but they'll still be out there doing their job when powerful quantum computers become a reality. And if you answered yes to that one, you're also an urgent adopter. See, your risk isn't just about data being stolen. It's about the security and the basic functioning of the physical world. And the real kicker? Trying to update the crypto in these long-lived systems can be incredibly hard, so you absolutely have to start planning for it now. All right, now for what might be the most important question of all. Honestly, this is the one that catches most organizations off guard. It's not just about what you do, it's about who you supply. So ask yourself, do you provide software or services to any of those organizations we just talked about? A government agency, a hospital, a car manufacturer?
Because here is the critical, non-negotiable rule of supply chains in this quantum world. You inherit the PQC persona of every single client you supply. It's that simple. If your client is an urgent adopter, then congratulations, so are you. A security hole in your code is a security hole in their hospital or their critical infrastructure. Your vulnerability becomes their vulnerability.
So, let's take a breath. If you answered yes to any of those questions, whether because of your own data, your own infrastructure, or because of who your customers are, then you've just identified yourself as an urgent adopter. And that means it's time to stop just thinking about the problem and start taking action. It's time for a proper diagnosis. Now, this isn't about panicking, not at all. It's about having a clear, manageable process. So for all of you urgent adopters out there, here is your 4-step diagnosis. This is the playbook for figuring out exactly where you're vulnerable.
It's a 4-part process. Step 1, you do a risk assessment that's specifically focused on the quantum threat. Then, you move on to steps 2, 3, and 4, which are all about creating inventories. You need an inventory of all your cryptographic assets, an inventory of your data assets, and, you guessed it, an inventory of your suppliers. These 4 things together, they're going to be the bedrock of your entire migration plan.
But I really want to pause and emphasize step 2 here, the cryptographic asset inventory. Almost everyone who works in this field will tell you the same thing. This is the most important and the most difficult part of the whole diagnosis. Seriously, trying to find every single place your organization uses cryptography, every little algorithm, every key, buried in every piece of software and hardware, it is a massive challenge, but it is absolutely critical.
Okay, so once you've done all that digging and you have your inventories, what's next? You can't fix everything at once. You have to turn all that data into a clear, ranked priority list. And the best way to do that is to actually calculate a specific quantum risk score for each and every one of your systems. And this score is actually pretty simple. It's a combination of just 3 factors. First, what's the quantum weakness of the crypto you're using? Second, what's the impact if that system were broken? And third, how much effort is required to migrate it?
Let's break those down real quick. The quantum weakness score is easy. Is the algorithm you're using, like RSA, known to be vulnerable to a quantum computer? If yes, it gets a score of 2. If it's something more resistant, it gets a 1. And if it's already quantum safe, congrats, it gets a 0.
Next up, the impact score. This is the so what factor. How catastrophic would it be if this particular system was compromised? A system protecting state secrets or the crown jewels of your company's IP? That's a 3 for extremely high impact. Something less critical gets a lower score. Pretty intuitive.
And finally, we have the migration effort score. Basically, how much of a pain is this going to be to upgrade? If you're dealing with a system that relies on a slow-moving supplier, or it's baked into hardware that's incredibly hard to reach, it could take more than 8 years to fix. That's a solid 3. On the other hand, a simple software patch might just be a 1.
Now this is where it gets interesting. When you put these scores together, you can see how priorities emerge. Look at that top example. A system with a high weakness score and a high impact score. That combination will always result in an acute risk score of 4. It shoots straight to the top of your to-do list, and it doesn't even matter how hard it is to fix. The risk is just too high.
So what you end up with is this really clear, really actionable tier list. A score of 4 is an acute risk. It's an all-hands-on-deck, act-immediately situation. A 3 is high risk, a priority for the short term. A 2 is medium, so it needs action, but it's less urgent. And a 1 is a low risk, more of a long-term thing to keep an eye on. See? This is how you transform that vague, anxious feeling about quantum computers into a concrete, prioritized action plan.
And that really brings us to the end of this diagnosis. We've walked through how to figure out your persona, how to conduct an inventory, and how to score your specific risks. So the final question isn't if you're at risk anymore. The question is, now that you know, what's your plan to fix it?